and welcome all of you to my YouTube channel Animals and Pets with Partha. Of course, you can also log on to this channel if you type Dog Judge Partha. Well, this channel I have been running for the last 1.5 years, and I'm overwhelmed with the support and the patronage that it has received from dog lovers not only in India but around the world. People who do log in and listen to my videos, and also a lot of audios that I put forward from time to time. Well, today's episode is regarding dog shows and how did dog shows come about in India. How did it, first of all, on the first instance, how did it all get started in this country? Well, as you know, there was a time when the sun never set in the British Empire. That was the saying. And it was true. So India was under the British rule for several hundred years. And so was Hong Kong and so was Ceylon. So wherever there were British settlements and British rule, the Britishers, though they were a handful in all of these countries, but they set up the whatever sort of hobbies and fancies that they had and the lifestyle they used to lead in their own country in England. So in India also they had horse racing that they put on, they had greyhound racing, they had dog shows, and they had all sorts of things. There were social clubs, there were billiards and things like that, and all sort of there are plenty of clubs in this British settlements. And Calcutta, as you know, was the first British settlement where the East India Company came and first set foot in India, and then they expanded, and initially Calcutta was their capital, and later on they of course moved on to Delhi. Well, the dog shows dates back, possibly we are the oldest kennel club in the whole of Asia, along with Hong Kong and Ceylon. I think that's about it. But then the dog game was very, very rich here, because the Britishers would come here, and all the British dogs would, be here. They would be importing them, and in those days they would come in shiploads of dogs would arrive, of course, along with other animals that the Britishers preferred. And of course, in India, you did have a lot of Rajas and Maharajas and the Nawabs, who were the only people who could come close to the British royalty, and only they were allowed to also keep dogs. So it went on, and the dog game flourished, and we really built up a wonderful knowledge base on the purebred dogs of the world. And most of these purebred dogs were they were from UK, and they were from around Europe, from Germany, and from many other countries. Later on, of course, there were inputs from all over the world, and the British Kennel Club became enriched, and they made a standard for each and every breed, and they regularized and standardized the procedures of dog shows. And it is those procedures that went around the world, and then, of course, over years, a lot of people around the world who initially started with the British system have sort of added on or just changed a bit here and there to suit their own country's requirements. But then, let me tell you the sad story. The story of the Indian dog world. The Indian dog world had really progressed to great heights. And when I became a judge in the later stages, in the early 70s, I would say, and then I came into the dog world, but then I became a judge in the mid-80s. So, it took me around nearly a decade and a half to get myself really trained into the sort of ways of how one would go about judging dog shows. First get to know what dog shows really meant. we started breeding with dogs. Of course, I came from a family of dog lovers, so that was an advantage, and we had lots of pets at home. So once I got started after my schools, my father, of course, initially helped me, and he allowed me to own a boxer and then, of course, a German Spitz. So both of these two dogs were sort of more or less at the same time, and later on I started breeding from them. The breeding, of course, it was not with the intention of making money, but when I did breed, of course, I had a lot of people wanting those puppies, and I did start selling them also. So slowly, I became addicted to it. It's not just the money, but every litter was an adventure. How the litters would be born, how I would deliver them with my own hands, and then I would spend sleepless nights sleeping beside the sort of the whelping box, and helping those little puppies go and suckle their mother's milk. And then if the mother sometimes there were things got complicated, and there were times when mother did not have milk, enough milk, and so I had to hand feed those babies. So it was so thrilling and so exciting. The very fact that I was able to rear these little babies and make them grow into sort of bloom into beautiful dogs later on. And then I had people who would wait for my puppies to be born, and then once they were of age, I would call them up, and they would come and collect them. So it was such a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. And those puppies were really pets at home. Some would come to dog shows. They would do a lot of winning. And so the life really with dogs, I thought, was really fulfilling. And this hobby of dogs, I found whoever were there, they were all enjoying it, and the dog shows was really fun. People went there with a mood to have picnic. We would all carry our own foods from home, and of course we never had so many eating places, so many. Now you call anybody and the food is delivered, and you have most people eat out and people eat from restaurants. But in those days, of course, it was primarily home cooked food that we would all have. We would even take a flask full of coffee and tea, and we would share with people. And the attraction was we would be sharing kennels. We would be sharing kennels with friends, and those friends also would be carrying food. And then, slowly the family grew. Dog game grew, and then, we had more clubs, and more the merrier. We were having such fun. And then, of course, time passed, and I became a dog judge. I didn't know, but I became a dog judge. And then, of course, I started judging internationally. But initially, I went to countries like Australia and New Zealand. I have several visits. And then after that, people got to know me, and then I started being called at Asian dog shows. But then the culture of Asian dog shows, wherever I went, was a shock to me. Because when I went to Australia, I found that, these countries, they adored the dogs even more. The dog game was so fascinating, so enthralling, so captivating. People were so much immersed in the serious business of dog breeding and dog showing. And, the level of knowledge was so high. I really sort of enriched myself. I was able to educate myself every moment that I spent in this wonderful dog-loving countries. But then when I came to Asia and I started going to Philippines and sort of Thailand and other countries, it really came as a shock to me. In these countries, the dog show culture was a different ball game altogether. It was truly and totally a commercial endeavor, because the dog shows there were showcases where they would attract customers, and then the dogs would win and they would be up for sale. And it means you could just point at any dog and offer a price, and if the buyer was happy, you would give it. So it was no feeling, no sort of emotional bonding with the animals at all. But it's not so in Australia, not so in New Zealand, not so in England. So, and not so. It was not so in India also, at least not with us. And so it came as a shock to me. And then at the dog shows, I saw the same, people handling class after class, of course, different dogs. And then I realized and I understood that the owners all sat outside, and maybe some were not there, but they had their handlers who would fly with their dogs, who would keep them in crates and would take them out and show them, and then put them back into crates and put them back into cars, and they would fly back to people. And so it was all money that was working, and these people who were, of course, the handlers for the dogs, and they would be taking care. So there was no real bonding between, in most cases, between the owner and the dog. So then I went deeper into it, and I went to kennels, and I realized I saw many small kennels and big kennels and medium kennels and whatnot. But then most of these people, for them, dog was just a commodity. Dog was not a part of their family. What they do is they just show the dogs, and then they have a system. They quickly make up champions, and they could then go into making them into grand champions, and then they go into Hall of Fame and things like that. And then the dog is retired. Maybe in a year's time, you're able to put up, make a dog and make up a dog with all these titles, and you come to the end of the road. And then next year you need another dog. You do, because that dog has already finished whatever it could have won. There's no other further to go. So they pick up another dog. And in a lot of cases, it's really surprised me, because the dog, they really retired, and they wanted to forget for good. And it was shut up in a cage. The life of that fantastic dog would land up in a cage. And there was a tray underneath, so the dogs would be just fed there, and then they would just take cage birds. It was because the birds at least can fly in a cage. They're given because they need to fly and keep them healthy, and that's why they can breed and things like that for the breeding birds. But here the dogs are kept in cages, and that's they have no life at all. They have no companionship. They're nothing. Nobody pats them. They're only taken out and groomed and brushed and fed and cleaned and washed, maybe bathed, and then put back in kennel. And that is the life. If there is a buyer for the dog, then they're sold. And, it depends who buys it and for what purpose. It might go to a person who would take it as a pet at home, or, well, that would be fantastic for the animal. It would then live in the room and sleep in the sofa or in the bed and be pampered and fed and cared for. But then in most cases, of course, they were just dumped for life. Then there's the next dog and the next dog and the next dog. And the owners, most of them, even today I can vouch for it, most of them do not know their dogs. At least, of course, they know what breed they're showing and things like that. But what quality that their dogs have, as in the parameters of a dog show, they would have no clue. It's the trainers and the handlers, they are their guide. They are, whatever they tell them, they believe them, and then, the handlers and the trainers always want new dogs. And then the trend is the judges. The judges are also doing the same thing. For them, they don't want to award the same dog again and again. So once they award a dog, or give it a best in show, second or whatever, the breed or the group, and next time the dog comes in, they would, prefer giving it to another dog, not the same dog. And it's a trend. So, it doesn't really make sense, because in a dog show, in a breed, supposing you have a top dog, supposing out of 100, that dog is given 95. And then you have 85 and 75 and 82 and whatever. But, and then, even in 5 years, you might not achieve somebody who is 95. Then how do you retire that 95 dog and start showing an 85 dog, which is, of course, much, much inferior to that dog? So what you do, it proves that you don't know your dogs. And then I question the judges who would not prefer putting up the 95 dog. Instead, they would put up a new dog which is 85 or 75. Well, where is our dog game going? It's, of course, this is not true with great judges. But then what do those judges do? When they come to these Asian countries, in a dog show, you can only judge what dogs are presented to you. Back in the kennel, they will not go to your kennel to see that you have some wonderful dogs lying in the cages and you are showing a much inferior dog to that judge. Means that all happens because the owner has no clue. The owner only wants new dogs to come in. That's what the handler wants, and that's for they only want younger and younger dogs, though they can quickly dump the dogs they've shown this year, and next year they should have a new dog. It's just like a new dress. So, it's very unfortunate, this scenario. And the whole of Asia, most of these countries, this is just sort of it's like a musical chair. And, anybody can just win. And next year there are different winners, and the following year there are even different winners. So this is how it keeps going on. And so it is really unfortunate. I don't know how many people will understand what I am trying to say, but I'm sure there are lots and lots of people around the world, especially people in Australia, New Zealand, England, America, people, serious breeders, serious enthusiasts, even some people who are in our country. In our country, of course, people are slowly giving up breeding good dogs because it doesn't make any sense. Here, they only prefer a new dog every year. Even if you breed a world-class champion, you can only show it for a few months. After that, you have to have a new dog because the judges here will not put up the same dog a second time. So, with these words, with this, this is my theme today, that I give you some food for your thought, and I will just sign off tonight. Please subscribe to my channel. Press the bell button, and of course like and share it. I'll come back again in a jiffy with the same on the same topic in Hindi and in Bengali. I would try to enlighten my listeners across India, and with the hope that someday we can go back in time and go back to those beautiful dog shows we used to have years back in this country, which was really established by the Britishers, and the training and whatever that was given to us, we have lost it, and we are losing everything fast. And there is going to be a time when nobody is going to talk about what I'm talking today, and it is only going to be a sort of a fun, frolic, game where you go in dressed fashionably. The handlers will be showing your dogs, and you sit outside sipping a glass of beer and sort of knowing nothing about your dog, the virtues or the faults. Thank you. Bye-bye.